Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CTL podcast, the Center for Teaching and Learning. And today we have Dr. Jan Johnson. She is the Associate Dean of Business, Social Science, and Public Service.
That's right.
She has a master's. She has two masters. And
Three
she has
masters.
Three masters. Well, I'm going to let you tell them what we have. But the reason we
Okay.
have Jan here today, or I've asked her to come and speak with us, is best practices in online teaching. She has a master's in that.
Yes.
She teaches 2 online classes at Jefferson right now.
Right now, yes.
At a time, per semester.
Mhm.
She's got some really good tips on how to make our online classes the best they possibly can be. So welcome, Jan. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me.
You can tell us all that your degrees that you have, but the one that I have you here today for is extra special.
Yes, yes. So I do have a bachelor's in contemporary studies with a minor in religious studies.
Okay.
And my first master's is, of course, in online teaching. And then I have a master's in management. And then I have an MBA.
Okay.
And I have a doctorate of education with an emphasis on looking at the underrepresentation of women in senior leadership roles in higher education.
My favorite degree that you have.
Oh, yeah, mine too.
But you've talked to us about that in the past. You've had a CTL session, and I will remind everybody we have that in the archive session, but the podcast format has been more popular lately. So I wanted her to share her best practices and tips on how to make our online classes the best they possibly can be.
Yeah, and this is an exciting topic for me. I really like to emphasize a couple of things when people are coming to me and saying, hey, I want to teach online, or how can I make my Canvas course better? And I like to bring up the research that says there's some things that really make students involved and feel like they belong, that sense of a belonging in an online course. And the easy peasy first thing is that there has to be a templated look to all of the courses. So if a student is here at Jefferson College and opens any online course and there's consistency across the board, and especially if we use our branding, because then we're also reminding them that they're at Jefferson College, it's easier for students to start navigating. So they land on a welcome page that looks like the welcome page that they just had in a previous course, or maybe the course that they just finished the work in, and then they move on. The other thing is when you get to the modules, if there's consistency in the modules, not just in where they're located, because they're pretty easy to find. You click on modules, but when they open a module, if the instructions are at the top and then the weekly objectives are there and they have their assignments, and the assignments are in the order of the due dates, simple things like that really make it easier for students to find. And then, of course, a wrap-up session. It's also best for our students if there's consistency in when assignments are due. When I teach my courses, they know every Tuesday they're going to start a discussion board that we're going to carry on through the week about the weekly topic. They know on Thursday they're going to have a critical thinking assignment that they're going to write on. And they know on Sunday they're going to have the chapter quizzes and make sure that they've wrapped up that discussion board. I feel it increases their chances of being successful in the class because they have that consistency. You and I, we both like consistency. We want to know that things aren't, going to bounce around from week to week. And then the final thing, and I may have already said this, and inside each module, the last page that I have is a wrap-up page. This is like the summary of what we've just learned in that module, and then we keep going. I also find that it's best practices to make sure that there's a lot of communication coming from the faculty member, because we don't want the students out there thinking that they're just taking a course and only communicating with the computer. So I have weekly announcements, and those weekly announcements are talking about like what they're going to do that week, really short intros into the chapters that they'll be reading. Those are set up when I'm setting up the course. Then additionally, as the class goes on through the weeks, I can add additional announcements that pertain to anything that's happened during the week. I had a quiz once that somehow I put the wrong answer on something. So I just made an announcement that I'm going to throw that question out. That was a mistake I had made. I always throw in a spring break one or, whatever's going on. And so in a 14-week format with just the pre-prepared announcements, they're getting 14 messages from you, then plus additional messaging. So that's one form of communication. The second form of communication that's really, really important is on writing assignments to give feedback to the students. I have rubrics on all of my assignments, and if I take points off, I explain why and where. And that form of communication really ranks high in the research as to what makes students successful in an online course. Other ways of communicating are when they email you to your email or through the LMS platform that you're using. We use Canvas here to make sure that we're getting back to them in that timely manner, and make sure that in our syllabus, we say what that timely manner is. Mine is in a 24-hour window. I know that some, a while back, it used to be 48 hours, but I think we communicate faster, and students today, they like to text and stuff. So they like a little bit faster than 48 hours.
I think we're required 2 days, business days.
Right.
And
business days, that is correct.
But you're right. Students on all my evaluations say, I like that you respond to me. And I usually respond within 12 days. And I said, if you don't hear for 12 days, 12 hours, the day I get it, because if I don't, I'll forget it. And it gets buried depending on where they send it.
Right.
May I ask you another question too while I'm thinking about it? I agree with the feedback on assessments.
Yeah.
There are 2 places in Canvas that you can. One is right below sometimes test questions.
Right.
And then there's another box that's additional comments.
Mm-hmm.
I have found that students don't read that. Especially sometimes I give feedback when they make 100%, but I like to add comments about what they did well.
Right.
If I don't reduce their grade, they don't even look at it to find out why. I mean, that's a big push for me, is that they're not reading what I'm writing about. And I tell them from the beginning, if you don't make 100%, there's a note in there somewhere that why you didn't make.
Well, you bring up a really good point. One of the first announcements that I send out is that welcome announcement. And I point out to them to please check the comments, because I will give them feedback. And I also let them know that in the first couple of weeks, I'm grading really hard and nitpicky, but I also let them drop one of the, drop the lowest. Usually it's always going to be that first week, because then they get used to how I'm going to grade. I point out spelling and grammar.
Do you take off for it?
In the first 2 weeks, I don't take off for it, but it ends up in the comments.
Yeah. I think that's really important.
After the first few, if you're still not starting a sentence with a capital letter, there's...
Spelling and grammar are big for me. I used to do that in the business communication class, but I thought, why am I not doing this in all my classes?
Right.
Because all the students need to know you've got to proofread.
Right.
And it's not that they don't know it in some cases, is they haven't given themselves time. They've waited to the last minute and they've just pushed it and gotten it over with. And I'm like, you got to proofread this stuff. You know? So, and if you don't take points, they don't look at it.
Exactly. Exactly.
They don't, and so I think that's important. I agree with that.
Right. I think that you're correct that they don't look at the comments. And then you'll get this random email saying, why did I get 60 on my assignment, or, whatever.
Well, I agree with the announcements, because they get a push for that.
Right.
A lot of times they don't see an email, but I too send the same message in an announcement to all the students after grading, because there's a common thread of what they're missing. And then I shoot them a message about after the fact, okay, here's what I found with most of us need to kind of work on this or that. And they see it. The announcements, they see it.
I also do, and some people might think this is overkill, but I do think about, I am teaching intro classes. These are freshmen in college, and each assignment has those 3 little dots that you can say message students who, and
it's in the grade book.
So one of the things that I do is, if an assignment is due on Tuesday morning, I go there, and whoever hasn't submitted, I just have this thing that just says, quick reminder, this assignment is due tonight at midnight.
And you usually get a thank you.
I do.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, you do.
Yes.
At least from one person.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that the way those must show up for the students must be an individual thing. Those don't come like
it does
an
send it
announcement.
individually. Yeah.
Yeah. Or else I'm working on it tonight. I'm almost finished with it, whatever it is. But it's just an announcement to students who haven't submitted at that time. Going back to the announcement page too, you can set up on your welcome page that your last announcement that you send out stays on top of your welcome page.
Oh, interesting.
So that's a setting inside of Canvas. You can do up to 3, but then I think it kind of like busies up the welcome page.
And they stop looking at it.
So I just leave the last one. So this week we opened Module 9.
So if they didn't,
Module 9 is now open, and then it shows the first line of the message. So that's another way for them to always go, oh, okay, that's the one that I'm working on.
Two things. Do you have some sort of, and other faculty have told me this, I need to use it, where you give a syllabus quiz in the first week so they make sure that they can't go past that quiz until they make 100 to make sure they read the syllabus?
I have not.
I'm going to try that.
I was thinking about it, but in simple syllabus, which we use now, it does show in the Canvas reports.
Yeah.
Who has.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, but then you're just going to have to go back and hound those people. I mean,
right.
And it'll even tell you the percentage of it that they read.
Right.
Which is really amazing. But I just think that would cure a lot of problems, because those depending how long that is, they may not be reading all of it, and I have to at least halfway through the semester, it's on the syllabus.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try that. The second thing is, do you do any kind of group work with your online classes? Break them out in groups.
I have not at the freshman level.
Okay.
When I used to teach at the graduate level, we had lots of breakout groups. I haven't stepped into that yet. I probably should in some way, shape, or form, but I haven't. But I like the idea of it.
The reason I ask is because, I've started to do more every class period face-to-face, the group work, whatever the content we have lectured on. Everybody has a different question. Every group has a different question, and then they report back, and they get points for participation.
Yeah.
And I think, my online classes are missing out on that. And I know you can do that in the online classes. Have you had any research
there is research on the increased amount of peer-to-peer communication leading to students being successful. So currently the only thing that I'm using is a discussion board. I'm also very tough on discussion boards. They know the rubric. Most of my questions on the discussion board will have somewhat like the prompt that the textbook or the topic would lend to. And I've added to each discussion, why is this important to business? And they have to write a paragraph. And then the next one is, why is this relevant to business? Whatever the topic is. And then the next paragraph, and it really doesn't have to be a paragraph, but the last couple of sentences is, did you find this interesting? Why or why not? And so we get a bigger and more robust discussion going. And then when they're responding to somebody, I ask them to at least make sure that one of the replies is somebody who takes a different stand than they do. And what I've noticed is that means they have to open more of them and find somebody. So we can't do the old, I agree with you.
No, I hate that. I mean, I don't hate that, but I think when I agree, it's just a shortcut.
It is.
We've got to make a response to that. So as a wrap up, you've got a lot of content that we talked about today. What are your 3 things that are most successful for student success in online courses that you would recommend for faculty?
Oh, wow. That's great. Okay. I would definitely say have a very, and I hate to use the word templated, but consistent look. Well, that welcome page, you really have a lot to say and make the student feel like this is a class that they want to step in. It's like walking into a classroom, right? If the classroom is kind of, they've got to walk
here.
in. Yeah. Right. Consistency on assignments and due dates. And then the other thing is communicate.
I definitely agree with that. Students really appreciate that you get back with them, and they are always complimentary. Thank you so much for responding to me. And I'm picky about that. I want people to respond to what I've asked.
Yeah.
And, don't wait a week for that. So
Right.
I appreciate what you do for us and for the students. And I think the more we share about that, I'm thinking maybe we'll talk about putting a Canvas shell in for faculty to use to have some sort of a best practices for online teaching.
I think that's a great idea.
Because, and when you're talking about where things are, it reminds me of moving the furniture. Who moved the furniture? When I go from one class to the next,
Right.
you spend so much time trying to find things. So
Right.
if we can just start with, this is just a recommendation based on research-based.
Yeah.
This is a skeleton thing that we should check that we have in our online classes.
I think that's a great idea.
I agree.
Yeah.
Jan, thanks so much for coming. We appreciate your time. And if anybody wants to see her CTL session, there's recordings in the archive in the CTL events page down at the bottom.
Thanks
you. Thanks again.
Have a great day.
See you next time, everybody.